Today we're going to look at the system logs in Rillion Prime. And if you're working in Rillion Prime as a super user or an administrator type of user, you'll be able to see the system logs here. And as you can see now, I'm logged in here with my role that is an accounts payable role. And here on my left-hand side here of the screen, I can see a module called System. So it's right below Administration. And when I click on this here, I will get a subsection opened up. And there are different types of logs here. So we're going to have a quick look at a few of them so you'll get an idea of what is covered here. There are quite a few different types here, and if you want to know more about them, I would recommend perhaps looking into the user guide so you can get more information, and perhaps also checking out the system logs in your own Rillion environment so you can see what kind of data you have there. But let's start with the system logs here. So open this one up, and I was thinking that we can have a look at the version log together here. So most of our customers today are using an online cloud version of Rillion Prime that is receiving continuous updates. So roughly once per month, your Rillion Prime environment will be updated. We do also recommend that super users of the system follow the release notes for each update in our customer portal. And on the release notes for the new versions, you will be able to find information regarding new features and fixes that are being released. And on those release notes, you can also see which version the release notes are applied to. And if you go here into the version log, you can see when your Rillion Prime environment has last been updated and what version you are running. So this, at least the 8.139 in this case, that is at least what you would be able to see in the release notes, what version this is regarding. So then you will know if the release notes number is a bit higher than what you can see here, then you'll know that that is an upcoming release for you. But if it's a number that is already covered here, then it is a release that already has been, that your Rillion environment has been updated to, and you should be able to find those new features and perhaps fixes in your Rillion Prime environment. So this could be quite useful to check if you want to make sure what version you're running and when you can see new features. Then we have the function log here one step below. So we'll click that open as well, and we will get a subsection for that too. And as I mentioned, there are many things here covered, but we'll have a look at the invoice changes today. So for instance, it can occasionally happen that something has happened during a processing of an invoice that you're quite not quite sure what has happened and when and how. So there are quite a few different things being logged here in the invoice changes log. So you can see that there are changes of due date, accounting date, someone has canceled or deleted an invoice, changed the supplier or the amount, for instance. So if something like that has occurred and you need to figure out why, so you can prevent it from perhaps happening again, if it was an error, then you can find that information here in the invoice change log. So for instance, if we want to see now if there are any invoices where an amount has been changed, I will just search for that event. If I know the exact information for the invoice, I know the invoice series and the serial number for the invoice, I would, of course, enter that data as well to narrow down the search results. But in this case, I'm just going to search now for invoices where the amount has been changed in the invoice log, and we'll see what kind of results we get. So there are a few. I can see that that has been logged here, the original value and the new value, and you can see when it has been done and who did the change. So this could be quite useful if you're looking for possible mistakes that has happened and you need to make sure that they get corrected and you prevent them from happening again. Then we have the queue reports for register data and a rather large subsection here as well. So the registers in this section here, this covers all the different register types that we have supported integrations for. All of these might not be relevant for your own Rillion Prime environment. So you will just check what kind of information is being transferred between your ERP and your Rillion Prime environment. Quite often, at least, customers have integrations for accounts, objects, suppliers, bat codes, quite often also periods, and perhaps also currencies. But you'll have to check which ones are actually relevant for your own setup, and then you can look at those. If you don't have an integration for that, then there will be no data showing here at all. And in this case, there actually isn't anything here waiting to be processed or that has been stuck when being processed, but I'll cover what you could expect to see here. So for instance, let's say that we have transferred accounts from our ERP. And when they are transferred from the ERP to Rillion, they first arrive in something that is called a queue table. And in the queue table, it is waiting then to be processed by the Rillion side and then entered into the system. So if we now had a case where we had transferred accounts from our ERP, we would be able to see them here if they were not yet processed and entered into the main tables in Rillion. So this is empty now, but we could have expected to see a list of accounts here with the account values and the names. Perhaps there were some default objects to use as well on that account. And then it would say here what the queue status is, or if there was a potential error. So for instance, if we had an error, it could have been that we were transferring accounts with some default objects that do not yet exist in Rillion Prime. Then you could get an error, or you would get an error because that account or that object does not yet exist. So you can't have it as a default object on the account. So the object needs to be transferred first, and then after that you can get the account across. If you have an error like this, and you know that the object has also been transferred, you can just click here on Update Queue Status. That will then remove the error text. And the next time that Rillion is trying to process register data that has been sent from the ERP, it will try to reprocess the data that was in error the first time it was sent. Similar errors could also be found perhaps when you're sending suppliers. They could also have default values like default account coding values or similar data that also needs to exist in Rillion Prime in order for you to be able to get the supplier across with that default value. So familiarize yourselves with these queue reports, and if there are any errors, you can click on update, and the next time the integration is running, provided that the missing piece has come into the system, then it should be able to process the data that was in error as well. And let's move on from the register queue. There is a similar queue for the purchase orders if you have purchase orders in your Rillion Prime environment that are being sent from an external environment. This can be your ERP, and sometimes it's an entirely different system where these are sent from into Rillion Prime. So if we go into the queue reports for purchase orders, we can see here that in this case, we actually have a couple of purchase orders here waiting to be processed. So they've been sent into Rillion Prime, but they haven't been processed by Rillion yet. And we can see that by the queue status here, it says not processed. There is no error text. So the only thing missing here is just that the integration on this side hasn't yet tried to handle this data that has been sent. And here you can see there's a different report or a different table for each part of the purchase order. So on the purchase order, we have the header level information, which is this purchase order. Then you have the purchase order lines with their account posting, and the deliveries as well. If separate deliveries are being sent, then you have the header level information on the delivery, and then you have the delivery lines. So they can all be found in their own tables. And here you can sometimes come across errors like, let's say that a delivery has been sent across from the ERP, but for some reason the original purchase order was never sent. So then you would get an error saying that no purchase order can be found. So the delivery cannot actually be entered into the system because the purchase order that it belongs to is missing. So these are the types of errors that you could see here. But if you know that that you can fix this, for instance, you can export the purchase order from your ERP and make sure that it gets sent across, then you can also then just click update queue status here on the data that has been stuck in error, and then the next time, provided then that the missing piece has come across from the ERP, then Rillion will be able to process the data that was or that ended up in an error the first time it came over from the ERP.
What's the red cross there, Henrika? On there, if you scroll to the right, there was a red cross. What would happen if you click on the red cross?
That's actually a very good question. If you click on this, you would actually delete the record from here. That's something that probably wouldn't be used all that much in this instance. But you have a similar report also for invoices that have gotten stuck that can be found under reports. So invoices that have been captured, and if the capturing of the invoices hasn't been successful and you know that you have then later captured it or like entered it into the system successfully, then you can delete the records that are in error. So you know that those have already been received. But yeah, this would remove the line from here. So quite a lot of data being logged and reported here. As I mentioned at the start, if you would like to know more about these, I would recommend that you check out the user guides for this. And you can also just have a look around your own Rillion Prime environment and see what kind of data is being sent across to your own environment from your ERP. Now let's move on and look at the report section. Here on the left-hand side of the screen, you will also be able to find the reports. And today we'll have a look at a few of the reports. So we'll start off with the one that I mentioned when we were looking at the system logs and how you can delete records if you are sure that they are no longer relevant. So for instance, this show captured invoices report. This will show all the invoices that have been received into the system, and you can filter out this report by status. So for instance, it would be advisable that you keep an eye on this particular report to see if there are any invoices that have been sent, but for some reason they haven't been entered into the system. So just to make sure that you're not missing any invoices. On this show captured invoices report, I've now filtered the report based on the invoice status received. And if I click on search here, there is one record of an invoice that has been received. And if I scroll all the way to the right, I can see that there was an error on this invoice. So this environment is set up to have base currency Swedish crowns. And this invoice that has been received was in Canadian dollars. And the system here is saying that there wasn't a currency for this particular setup. So base currency Swedish crowns and currency Canadian dollars for the account coding date that we could see on the invoice. As long as a currency with a starting date that is older than the account coding date on the invoice, you will be absolutely fine. This error will not happen. But in this case, there was no currency for this particular invoice, so it couldn't be captured properly in the environment. In this case, what you would do is you make sure that you get the missing currency into your Rillion Prime environment. Either that is coming from your ERP, or you enter it manually under the administration and register part. And then the next time that the Rillion integrations or invoice capture is trying to handle the invoices coming into the system, it will try to reprocess this invoice that got stuck the first time it came in. Then you might also have other invoices here that are stuck that you know that actually I've already gotten those invoices into the system. So this error record here is not needed. And then you can do what we saw in the logs or the system logs. You can just delete the record from here and then it will go away. So this is a very good report to keep an eye on, just to make sure that you're not missing any invoices if they get stuck like this. Another really good report that a lot of customers get a lot of use out of is the show invoice reports. And we have previously talked about the permission groups in one training. This is very much linked to that because it is advisable that you have different types of levels of permissions for your users to the invoice reports. So for instance, your end users, they might only need to see the invoices that they have themselves been a part of the flow of. Whereas, for instance, your accounts payable users, perhaps some managers, might need entirely different levels of permissions so they could see all the invoices, or perhaps only the invoices where they have permissions to the cost center or a project or something similar, one of the accounting values. There are a lot of different search criteria that you can use here. So you can choose what you want to look for. Let's see. So I want to look now for invoices that have a contract number. I am not sure what the contract number is, but for this exercise, I only want to find invoices that already have a contract number on them. So I've used the exclamation mark here in the search field. And this means that there needs to be a value in this field, but I'm not specifying what exact value should be there. So let's hit search and see what result we get. So now I get a list of invoices that has had a contract number in the contract number field. And this report could be quite useful if I'm trying to perhaps set up contracts for invoice matching in Rillion Prime. Then I could use this report to see which suppliers are already sending invoices with contract numbers on them, and are they perhaps candidates for invoice automation with the contract module. And I can see here that there are 2 invoices that had actually been matched against contracts here as well. So that could be a useful thing to do when you are trying to perhaps look how you can automate better. You can also create different reports here if you're trying to, or perhaps you have something that you need to look at rather frequently or with a similar search criteria every time. What you can do is then you just save this as a search template for yourself. So now I have my contract search. So I click on search and then I can name it. And then I have this here in the drop-down menu. So this will make it a little bit faster for you when you are perhaps need to weekly or monthly look for certain invoices, perhaps invoices that are active and need to be handled before the end of the month. Then you can have a ready-made template for that search and then perhaps just edit it accordingly based on the dates or whatever criteria you're using. So then you don't need to enter all the search criteria every time. So you just edit and adjust as needed, or perhaps there's nothing that you need to adjust, so you just select it from here and then you can search. If you are a super user of the system and you have access to see all of the invoices here, it would be advisable as well for you to limit the search somewhat rather than just searching for all invoices that has been processed in Rillion Prime since you started using the system. If there are tens or hundreds of thousands of invoices in your system, you might find that Rillion is going to have to think for several seconds before it will show you the result than if you don't limit the search at all. So that could be something to keep in mind. But as you can see, lots of different things to search based on, and have a think about the permissions, who needs to see what, just to make sure that you're not giving too much permission to someone and then having to take it away afterwards. There is a user guide that covers the reports as well in our customer portal. So if you're interested in learning more about all the different reports and what they're showing, I would advise that you go and check that out. You can search in the user guide with these names of the reports as search words, so then you get directly to that section of the user guide, and then you can see more information about what exactly these reports show and what they cover. But they can be quite useful when you're thinking about how to work in Rillion Prime and how to automate and how to follow up on things. So when I was looking for my invoices with a contract number, you saw that I was using the exclamation mark as a search criteria. And this can be quite useful to do. So as I said, I can specify that there should be a value in this field, but I'm not specifying which exact value it has to be. There are a few other quite useful characters to use as well when you're searching in the reports. They are covered in the user guide, but they are actually also available here in the user interface. If you hover with the mouse here on the information icon, you should be able to see a little pop-up window with a list of the special characters and what it means if you use them when you're searching in the reports module. So for instance, you see the first one that I used was the exclamation mark, means that there should be a value in that field. Don't have to specify which one. And then you can see the rest of the characters as well and how they can be used to help limit your search when you are not able to, or perhaps don't know what the exact value is that you're looking for. So by limiting the search like this, then you can help yourself find the right data. So have a look at this and perhaps try using them in your daily work when you are searching for perhaps invoices here in this report or any of the other reports that you can find and have access to.